get into it. Hi, Paul. It's good to see you. So, hi, everyone, and welcome to today's Grant Masterclass. This is a new series we launched in the fall where we invite accomplished grant seekers from our instrumental community to share their best practices, their strategies. Today, we're joined by Allison Jones. I know quite a few of you, I can recognize your names. I know quite a few of you are here because you attended Allison's event way back in December that we did that. We are excited to have a whole hour to dive into Allison's grant workflow today. And today's workshop, y'all are going to love this. It's going to be very framework heavy. So Allison's going to walk us through step by step the exact process she uses to go from finding a grant opportunity, collecting all the necessary materials, wrangling the colleagues, writing drafts, all that jazz, all the way to having it polished, ready to submit. And we do that within 50 days. So perfect, right? We love frameworks here. And part of Allison's process takes place inside Instrumentl, which is why I was so excited to get a chance to have her show this process because, I mean, this is an Instrumentl webinar, right? So we will be diving into Instrumentl as part of this workshop. So if you have an Instrumentl account, you can follow along, maybe get some pointers. If you don't, you'll have the opportunity to create a totally free account during the event so you can take it for a spin with some of your newly acquired strategies. And lastly, I know there's going to be some of you in the room who are just like not interested in Instrumentl today. That's totally fine. Stick around anyway, because there's going to be a lot of strategies you can apply to whatever systems you have in place. Instrumentl, not Instrumentl, spreadsheets. You do you. And for any of our first timers, Instrumentl is the most loved all-in-one grants platform for prospecting, tracking, and management. And we currently help over 4,500 nonprofits and grant consultants save time in finding and applying for more grants. So, some quick FYIs. This is about 60 minutes long. This includes the Instrumentl workshop. It's going to include a Q&A at the end. So if you have questions, drop them in the chat. I'm going to be making a note of everything. So if your question goes in there, even if we don't respond to it right away, it's not in the ether, it is noted. And I'm going to bring them back up to Allison to answer at the end. This event is being recorded and you will get it sent straight to your inbox before the end of the week. And if you need to step away at any point, feel free to do so. We were going to be right here, but I do want you to stick around till the end because one of you is going to win a gift card to a vendor of your choice, and all of you are going to walk away with a very special freebie today. And that is Allison's brand new ebook. We love ebooks. We love downloadables. We love all that stuff. So this is a great accompanying resource to today's event. You'll be able to reference back to all the strategies and frameworks that we covered today. And of course, we want to make sure we're sending you away with a head start on your next grant proposal. So we'll spend a few minutes building a custom list of grant opportunities for each of you diving into Instrumentl with us for the first time today. And okay, last couple of things here. I promise I'm almost ready to give it over to Allison. Before we dive in, I just want to introduce myself to any of our first timers. If you're not a first timer, you can probably recite my intro by heart at this point, I know. But I'm Mia. I am an events and community manager here at Instrumentl, and my job is to develop helpful and educational events like this one to share with our Instrumentl community. And I actually come from the nonprofit world. So prior to Instrumentl, I worked in rainforest conservation and research. So if we have any rainforest people in the room, we usually never do. It's kind of a niche world. But if there's any rainforest people in the room, let me know in the chat. And all of that aside, I'm not the expert in the room today. So with that, I want to introduce Allison Jones. Many of you already know her, but for those of you who don't, Allison is the founder and CEO of Spark the Fire grant writing classes. She's one of only 25 trainers nationally approved by the Grant Professional Certification Institute and an approved trainer for both the GPA, so the Grant Professional Association, and CFRE, which is the Certified Fundraising Executives. And she is also an absolute pro when it comes to education, professional development, helping us learn things. She's an adjunct professor at several higher education institutions in Washington, teaching grant writing classes and certification programs. And she has her very own grant writing classes, Spark the Fire, which I know actually some of our Instrumentl community members are alums of. So that's always fun to see. And she's a practicing grant writer, and she serves as a grant reviewer for foundations and government entities, so she knows both sides of the puzzle. So all of this to say, Not only is Allison in the weeds with all this grant stuff that we're going to be talking about, but she truly knows how to teach it too. So I'm very excited to have her back on our stage. I'm about to turn it over to Allison, and we're going to switch over to her slides in just a second. But before I do, one question for you all. I would love to hear from you. Do you have a process in place that you follow for each grant opportunity? So maybe a checklist of sorts or a standardized system that your whole team knows and relies on? Or maybe it's like a little ad hoc, figure it out as you go, depends on the grant type, the approach. And Allison, I'm going to let you take over the slides now.
Great.
Seems like a lot of you have a checklist spreadsheet. Sarah says, when I work with a team, yes, but on my own, less so. John says, yes, it's strategic. We love strategy. Jason says, new world to me, so not at the moment. Okay, we have a good spread here. Sort of, says Deborah. I think sort of is a great way, great way to sum up most things in the world of grants, right? Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Allison.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Nia, and welcome everyone to the webinar. This is all about submitting polished proposals 2 weeks early, and it's about one of the most powerful and underused strategies in grant writing, which is to submit your grant application early, 2 weeks early to be exact. And so I'm going to share exactly how that simple shift can change everything from how funders perceive your organization to how confident you feel when you hit the submit button. So we will talk about why early submission builds relationships with grant makers and sets you apart. And then I'm going to walk you through my step-by-step 50-day turnaround strategy that makes early submission possible without the panic. And as Nia mentioned, everyone who registered will get a free copy of the Spark the Fire brand new ebook, which is sponsored by Instrumentl, and it's called the 50-Day Turnaround Discovery to Delivery. So stay tuned to get your link for the download, and let's jump in. Nia already did a wonderful job of introducing me, but I did want to describe myself for anyone with limited vision as part of accessibility best practices. I'm a white looking woman with blonde hair, and I'm wearing a kind of a beige button-up shirt today and glasses, and I am Allison Jones, your guide for the day. And so we'll just jump right into learning objectives. So here's what we're going to cover in our time together today. And this is the professor in me. So learning objectives. By the end of this session, you'll walk away with 3 things. A clear understanding of why early submission is a game changer, not just for hitting deadlines, but for opening doors with funders. Second, insights into how early submission can strengthen relationships and give you this rare chance to stand out and, in some cases, even receive feedback before a decision is made. Of course, you'll get the breakdown of the 50-day turnaround strategy, which is a repeatable system that helps you consistently submit proposals 2 weeks early without the last-minute scramble. These are the strategies that I use with my own team and my clients, and they work, and they're easier to implement than you might think. So let's get into the story that changed everything for me. Early in my career as a freelance grant writer, one of my first clients actually was a small family services nonprofit organization. And I was working on a grant proposal to the D.V. and Ida McEachern Foundation. And the request was for a capital campaign to renovate an old YWCA building into a play space and community hub for families. The idea was really powerful. This play space wasn't just about recreation. It was about giving parents support and connection and resources to help give children a healthy start in life. And I was at the time a brand new parent. I had well, they were 24 months apart, my kids, and the oldest one was 2.5 at the time. So this felt really meaningful to me, and I really wanted to get it right. In other words, I was going to be using the play space. So at the time, I had just left my full-time job, which was at Catholic Community Services of Western Washington. And I had set up a tiny home office. I wasn't used to business calls on my personal cell phone yet. So when my phone rang out of the blue, it sort of caught me off guard. And it was in the evening time. It was after 5 p.m. I was in the kitchen, I was prepping dinner, and I see this, unknown number pop up. And so I answered it. And on the phone was a wonderful lady named Therese Ogle, who is the program officer for the McEachern Foundation, as well as the One Family Foundation and the Fales Foundation Trust, and a few others. So she was kind of well known around the Pacific Northwest for being the program officer for quite a few family foundations. And so she's on the phone and she says, "Hi, Allison. I saw your application come in a little early and I had a few questions for you." And she asked me about things like the timeline for the project. She wanted to make sure that the renovation plans and the timing of the grant award would work right. And she also wanted to know how much funding had already been secured. And we talked through the project, and I was so glad that I was intimately involved in the project and I was able to answer all of her detailed questions about the project. And she pointed out very kindly that the balance sheet that I had submitted was actually more than 3 months old. And she asked me if I could send an updated one. And that's when she said something that I'll never forget. She said, "If you'd like to make a few changes and resubmit your grant proposal, feel free to send me the updated version." And this really blew me away. I had never had this happen before. And so, of course, I did. I went to work straight away. I got it, the new version back to her the very next day, and gratefully added the updated balance sheet and added a few clarifying lines to the proposal. And I resubmitted it. And that was the moment that it hit me that submitting your grant application early opens up a door that submitting on the deadline day simply doesn't. And so this was, 15, 20 years ago when this story happened, and I've been using this practice since then. And I've also noticed that when I review grants for foundations, particularly a foundation called For Culture, which is in Washington, that the program officers are really quite happy to review your grant application ahead of the deadline. But if it's a week out, if it's a week and a half out, they cannot do that anymore. They're just too scrambled with everything else that's going on. So from that day on, I stopped treating deadlines as immovable targets, and I started treating early submission as a strategic tool, one that creates breathing room, and it shows funders that you're organized, and it invites collaboration. And that brings us to the strategy that I built around that mindset, and that's what I now call the 50-day turnaround. So I just want to talk a little bit more about why early submission isn't just a nice to have, it's a total game changer. Most grant writers aim for the deadline, and I get it. Deadlines are real, and we're all juggling a lot. And I do recognize that there are grant opportunities where submitting 2 weeks early would be impossible to follow, because this strategy, with an announcement of a grant award, sometimes it doesn't allow that much time. So you might hear about it, or the grant maker might just announce it, and you only have a week or two to get the grant application in. So setting those instances aside, I'm talking more about prospects that we have on our calendar. We know that they're coming up, and we know that because we're using Instrumentl for our grants management, and we've got our whole plan in place on our calendar, and I'll show you what that looks like. But when you aim for 2 weeks early, everything changes. It gives funders time to reach out. So when your proposal comes in early, it lands with clarity. It's not buried in a flood of last-minute submissions, and that creates space. And program officers, like Therese in my story, might take a moment and read your application more carefully. They might reach out to clarify something, and that gives us the opportunity to build stronger funding relationships, which is, I know you know this, so incredibly important. You can write the most perfect, wonderful grant application. It may not get funded though if you don't have that relationship with the grant maker and you have a really wonderful reputation of your organization. So second, it allows for feedback and collaboration. Submitting early sends this message that you're open to dialogue and there's room in the timeline. Some funders may ask questions or offer suggestions, things that they would never have time to do if you're sliding under the wire. And that collaboration, even if small, can help build trust and improve your proposal before it's reviewed. And third, it shows professionalism and preparedness, right? I mean, early submission is telling this story about your organization before the reviewer even reads the first words. It says, we're organized, we care about quality, we planned ahead. And so funders deciding between multiple strong applicants, this kind of signal can really matter. And last, it reduces last minute stress for your team. And I know that we all need less stress in our lives. So when you build in this buffer, everything is just going to feel so much more manageable. No one is panicking over broken links or missing attachments. There's space to breathe, to revise, and to submit with confidence. And so for consultants, internal teams, and especially solopreneurs, it's a real sanity saver. I tell this story, I don't have time to tell it today in my classes, this story about submitting a proposal minutes to the deadline and was actually running down the street of Seattle with this box in my hand, trying to get it to the King County office. And anyway, so avoid that. This is the opposite of that. Okay, so that's where the 50-day turnaround comes in. And this, I just want to point out that this strategy is totally adaptable. So feel free to make tweaks to it, tweak the steps, shift how you divide the work, but the timeline itself should still hold up. And what matters is the structure. And so when you have that, the stress level goes down, the quality goes up, and funders really notice. Oh, somebody says that they've been there, done that, run down the street with a box. I'm impressed. I thought I was the only one, Lynn. Okay, so unless that was a comment on something else, here's the big picture of the 50-day turnaround. And this strategy is designed to give you and your team, or just you if you're a one-person shop, a clear, realistic timeline that leads to confident early submission. So we start 50 days out from the actual funder deadline. And from there, everything is broken into manageable phases. So I'm going to do kind of a brief overview, and then I'm going to go sort of deep dive into each of these steps. So the first is discovery and strategy. This is where you lay the groundwork, confirm eligibility, read through the guidelines again. For a lot of us, we do prospect research ahead of time, but now, okay, it's time to take another look because it's time to start preparing the application. So just going back and reconfirming everything and developing a strategy for your approach. And notice that at each stage, I have a little tool that goes along with that step and helps with the process. So we'll talk more about that as we go, but in this stage, the discovery and strategy phase, you can use the Spark the Fire go, no-go tool to determine if the opportunity is worth pursuing. So next is client coordination and the initial draft. You don't want to wait until everything is perfect. You draft with what you have, and then you fill in the gaps as the client materials or internal data comes in. Third is the internal review and revisions. The goal here is to strengthen the proposal based on internal feedback from your team before it ever goes to the client. Next is the client review and the final edits. So once it's strong and polished, it's ready for your client's eyes, and you can give them space to review without pressure. And then submit 2 weeks early. This is key. Day 14 is your planned submission date, not the panic button. And then finally, post submission follow-up. This final phase helps you build the relationship, document lessons learned, and prepare for the next time. And so you're going to find this timeline broken down in detail in this ebook that I'm sharing with everyone. And as I said, this process is built on real experience. It's not theoretical. We actually use this every day. And I'll get started with, here is the QR code for the ebook 50-day turnaround discovery to delivery. You can scan that code. And I have it on the next few slides as well. And it will also be in my um, follow-up email to everyone. So you can make sure to grab this. So here is 50 to 45 days to the actual deadline. This is where the entire process begins. So 50 days out. The goal here is simple but critical: to set the stage for a strong strategic start. And that means being thoughtful and intentional before we ever start writing. So first, we deep dive into the guidelines. We're not looking just at eligibility, but submission requirements, matching fund expectations, demographic reporting, anything else that could affect your narrative or your budget. And we confirm how the proposal is submitted. Is it through an online portal, a PDF that goes via email? And we look for quirks. So, do the portals, is it a portal that doesn't allow you to save your progress, or does it require account registration well in advance, and so on? Next, we bring in our grant team meeting. So this is a collaborative discussion where we assess the fit and the strategy, and we kind of ask ourselves, what is the funder really asking for? Do we have stories? Do we have data and evidence that are going to meet their expectations? And if we're missing something, this is the moment that we flag it. Then we assign the grant writer. We enter the internal deadlines into Instrumentl, and we get everyone on the same page early. So setting expectations up front keeps things moving and avoids bottlenecks later on. We also outline the next steps, and we create checklists right in Instrumentl, and I'll show you how I do that. And that includes what we need from the client, as well as what approvals we need internally and when those pieces are due. And before we fully commit, we do use our go, no-go tool, a structured decision-making checklist that helps us assess if the opportunity is really worth pursuing. And it's especially helpful when deadlines are tight or the funder alignment is a little fuzzy. So if you're curious about that tool, be sure to check it out on my website. It's great for consultants as well as in-house grant writers and teams making that strategic decision. Is this worth our time to pursue? And here's a tip: a strong start saves hours later. So take time now to get clear on your strategy, your requirements, and the roles of everyone to help prevent any kind of back and forth confusion that derails a proposal late in the game. And once we've got that clarity, we're ready to start drafting. Again, even if you don't have all the client info that you need right now, we're going to start drafting as we wait for that information to start flowing back. And I'll take you to the next step. Oh, sorry about the QR code. I'm going to send you a discount code to get the book for free. I'm so sorry. I don't want you to pay $9.97 for it. It's free. So sorry about that. I didn't even think of that when I put that QR code there. So 44 to 29 days to the actual deadline. This is the client coordination and initial draft. And this is really one of my, I'll refund it, Nikima. I'll refund it if you accidentally paid for it. So this is one of my favorite phases because this is where the proposal actually starts taking shape, even if you don't have everything together yet. So the goal here is to start drafting while you're still collecting information from the client. And we begin by presenting the opportunity to the client. We get the green light. This isn't just a quick yes. We walk them through why the opportunity is a good fit, what we'll need from them, and what the internal timeline will look like. We want to make sure that their work schedule aligns with when it's their opportunity to fully review. And of course, we also set this up on a shared document so the client can always, or your supervisor, whoever needs to review, can always follow along as you go. But then we do also have a formal review time where, okay, this is the final. I need you to put your eyes on it and make sure that they have time set aside for that. So at this phase, we use a data collection tool and checklist, and that helps us request exactly what we need that we don't already have on hand. And so that would be budgets, project details, financials, board lists, letters of support, whatever the guidelines require that we don't already have on hand. When we first onboard a client, we go through a process of collecting all the information that we need from them in advance. So this is really just things that pop up that are specific to this grant that we don't have. So we use this checklist in Instrumentl, but you can create it wherever you hold your grants management system, and it helps both our team and our clients keep track of what's received and what is still missing. So while those materials are coming in, we begin drafting the proposal using a cloud-based document. And this allows for real-time collaboration, and it means that the proposal is always in motion and never stalled. I just want to ask if I know some of you are going to feel me on this, but do you remember back before there were cloud-based documents and we would write a grant proposal and we'd have to send it to, 3 or 4 people for review, and we'd get 3 or 4 different revisions back that conflicted with each other, and then we're scrambling to make sense of, well, whose suggestion is right? And it was just such a pain. So just shout out for for cloud-based documents. I really appreciate the technology here. So we build this narrative using what we already have: past grant language, program descriptions, rough budget outlines, and then we adjust it and integrate the new information as it arrives. And during this window, we also start prepping the supporting documents, so the cover letters, the attachments, PDFs, anything that needs to accompany the proposal. And here's your pro tip in this phase: don't wait. You can build about 80% of the narrative with the existing content, templates, and context that you have. So waiting for perfection is only going to delay your process and increase stress. So write forward and patch as you go. And one thing that I found is that sometimes people struggle with just writing something. So whenever I'm requesting information from a team member or from a client, I always say, just give it to me in bullet point form, because I find that people really, they can stew over sentence structure and so on, just kind of that blank page, writer's block, I guess is what it is. So if you say, just give it to me in bullet points, you're going to rewrite it anyway. So, just get the bullet points and then you can take it from there. So this phase runs for about 2 weeks, and it overlaps with the client info gathering process, which is a real time saver. And once the draft is complete, we're ready for internal review, and that's where we're headed next. So we're in the final stretch here, and this phase is all about finalizing the proposal and preparing it for submission. And the goal at this stage is twofold. We want to get the client's final approval and make sure we're ready to submit the proposal early, full 2 weeks ahead of the actual deadline. So we start by sending the client a review packet. And this includes resending or reminding them of the link to the cloud-based draft so that they can comment or suggest edits directly in the document. We send them a link to the guidelines, which includes any supporting documentation or attachments. And we also send a clean professional cover letter or email that will be sent with the proposal and signed by the client. And so, yes, we write the cover letter or the cover email for the client and then have them revise it if they would like to. We also include a client review questionnaire tool. And this is a tool that we've created that prompts clients to reflect on the proposal from multiple angles. So as you know, during this phase, we've all been looking at the grant for a while, and it's almost like you've stopped really seeing it. And it really helps to sort of take a step back and take your eyes off of it for a couple days and then come back with fresh eyes. So this questionnaire, this tool that we've created, it sort of reminds the client that you're not just looking for, a grammar mistake or something like that, or just factual information. It kind of helps them just step back and take that 40-foot view of the narrative. And so the questions are like, does the narrative fully reflect your mission? Are there key details that still need to be clarified? Does this proposal feel authentic to your voice and to your goals? So it's a really simple resource, but it helps move clients from this sort of passive review to active ownership of the proposal. And that's when the best feedback comes in. So once we receive their comments, we incorporate final feedback, we clean up the final draft, and we begin prepping for submission. And this might mean, assembling it into a single PDF if you have to email it. And when we assemble that single PDF, we always put the attachments in the order that they were requested. And we make sure to label the attachments with the exact words that the guidelines use. So for example, if it says 501c3 letter, we're putting 501c3 letter at the top as a label on our 501c3 letter. If it asks for IRS designation letter, that's the term we're using. And that really just avoids confusion about what it is that we're submitting as an attachment. And so they can check it off the list really easily. Sometimes you have to print and mail a hard copy. Yes, that still happens. I don't know about you, but I want to say 30 to 40% of the grant applications we submit are still print and mail. That's kind of crazy to think about, but there's one foundation that you actually have to create a full copy, which includes your entire 990 tax return, and then you have to mail it to each separate board member who all have different addresses across the country. Is that crazy? I think it's crazy. So anyway, or you're preparing it to upload in the online portal. And we also double check the instructions and the required attachments. We always confirm the signature process, whether it's a physical sign off, a digital authorization, or whether it's, sometimes the board chair needs to sign, and so on and so forth. So we never submit the grant for the client. And this is important. This kind of gets into ethics and just protecting yourself as a grant writer, something that I have a whole section on in my certificate in grant writing class, because I think this is really important. And I hope that none of you are doing this, but we never push the button on the online portal. We never put an electronic signature on the document and send it for the client. And the reason that we do this is that when that signature goes on, or when someone pushes that button, they are saying that they are the authorized representative of the organization and that everything in there is true and correct. So you as a grant writer are being given information and you don't know if it's true and correct. So that's why we won't push the button. We want the client to log into the system, review the grant in its online format, and push the button themselves. We're kind of sticklers about that. In a crunch, they have to send us an email that says, I have reviewed the application in the online format and you have my permission to press the submit button. We really try to avoid doing that though. So, and that again, that just is to protect you as the grant writer from if an organization receives the grant and then they can't fulfill the obligations of it, they can't come back and sort of scapegoat you and say that you didn't have permission to push the button or anything like that. That's not going to happen. So the tools we rely on here are cloud sharing and real-time commenting. And that allows us to work collaboratively without endless back and forth emails, and it makes the review process smooth and much more efficient. And so here's your pro tip. Give your client space to review. It's going to improve the buy-in and it's going to reduce last-minute changes. If they feel rushed, they might approve it too quickly, or worse, they hold up the process with unexpected edits at the last minute. So having this review window gives them the respect and the agency that they need to feel truly confident of being submitted. I had just another quick tip that popped into my mind as I said that. What was it? Oh, have you ever had that situation where it's gone to someone for review and then it's just sitting on their desk for days and days and days? So make sure to confirm in advance that they have this period open and ready to do this review during this time frame. And that way it's not just sitting there when you could be, maybe making more edits or something. my internet okay? I just saw a internet flash in my
You're good,
profile.
Allison. We can
Okay.
see, we can hear you. You froze for a second, but your audio is still here.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So once the client hits the submit button, and of course this happens early, they send us the email confirmation or the screenshot that it was actually submitted, and then we take that record and the date and the details, and for us we upload that into Instrumentl with our documents that go along with, the final draft. Any data that we used. We also, if we found any online research, like reports for our citations and stuff, we put that on Instrumentl and save that with the grant document. So basically we're collecting all these documents where we have a record of everything. So if there's any question ever that comes back, we've got it all in one safe place. And that's just why we love Instrumentl so much, is because it's just right there and the client can access that stuff too. So it's just wonderful. So now let's walk through what happens when the grant is submitted. So once the client hits submit, and this was 2 weeks early, they send us this confirmation email. They let us know it's officially done. At this point, the writing is over, but our process isn't. So we're immediately logging the submission date, the copy of the final proposal, the attachments, everything in Instrumentl. And that way we know what was submitted and when and by whom. There's no guesswork. And that's one of the reasons why that's really important, those dates are really important, is that some grant makers have a rule that you can't submit the next grant application until 12 months later, either from the date that you submitted it or from the date that you heard back. And so you really need to keep track of what those dates are. I've actually gotten a postcard in the mail before that said, oops, you submitted it too early. You're not eligible to reapply until this date. And it wasn't like a huge deal because it was already written, but I did have to go like through that process of doing it all over again and updating anything that had changed by the time it was time. And of course, I just sort of felt like I didn't look very organized to the grant maker, so I try to avoid that. Next, we set up follow-up tasks, and this is where we shift into relationship building mode. If the grant is awarded, we confirm the reporting timeline, we send a thank you letter. We always review the grant agreement or the contract to ensure there's no surprises and that the deliverables match what we proposed. And lately, I don't know what it is lately, if people are just scrambled or whatever, but I've been seeing a lot of grant contracts come back with deliverables that weren't the deliverables we intended. And usually it's not a big deal. You just let them know, oh, actually, these were the deliverables. These are the SMART objectives that we had proposed, and we want to make sure that this is, what our deliverables are. And then it just gets changed in the contract, and it's no big deal, but you want to make sure that you don't just sign the contract or whatever without double checking. So if the grant award is not awarded, we always request feedback. And even if the funder doesn't provide it, I think that asking for feedback shows professionalism and a willingness to improve. However, I don't know about you, but for me lately, I've been getting this sort of standard response to the feedback that says, we have, it actually comes with the letter that says, it was awarded or it was declined. And it says, we have limited staff and we're not able to provide feedback on your grant proposal. And that has been so frustrating lately. So my strategy with that is, I think that grant makers, right after the letters go out, they are exhausted. They've been going through this process. It's a really big deal. And the last thing they want is to get inundated with more phone calls. So wait a while, wait a week, wait a two. I mean, send the thank you letter right away, or the thanks for considering. I always send a thank you letter, even if it's a decline. So send that right away. But if you're really looking for feedback, I would say wait a little while when things calm down and the flurry of activity. I think that I found that grant makers are more open to providing feedback if it's not, right on the right after the deadline. I'm just reading this question because it was in all caps. If the client is the one who pushes the send button online, how do you ensure that they actually do it within the 14 days? So we ask them to take a screenshot and send it to us and confirm. So usually as soon as you hit go, this screen pops up that says your application was successfully submitted. They take a screenshot of that or they download it, and then that's how we know exactly when it was submitted. Yes. Okay, where were we? Let's see. So at this point, we're going to update the funder profile with any insights or communication. So for example, when you get either the award letter or the decline letter, there's usually, or sometimes there's contact information, including names, emails that maybe you didn't have previously. And so we'll add those to the contact place in Instrumentl. There's a place where you can add to the contacts for funders and keep note of that. So we update everything. We make any notes in the post-submission tracker for the next grant cycle, what worked, what could be stronger, what timing or strategy we want to use to adjust next time. And it's kind of our, after debriefing how the process went, we make notes there. And so the tool that we use here is called the post-submission tracker. And we use the Instrumentl task list for this, but you could use a spreadsheet or whatever. And the goal is to document what happens after submission, because every grant is a learning opportunity, whether you win it or not. And so here's your final tip in this series of slides. Early submission is a trust builder. It shows funders that you're not only organized, but you're respectful of their time and process. But what really sets you apart is what you do after the proposal is submitted. And so that's the follow-up, and it's how you turn one-time grants into long-term partnerships, which is what we really love. And that's at the heart of the 50-day turnaround, not just submitting early, but building trust and momentum for everything that comes next. So I have, now that you've seen this 50-day turnaround in action, I want to talk about the tool that helps us keep it all on track, and that's Instrumentl. And Instrumentl is more than just a grant database. It's the platform that we use to manage our entire grant workflow, from the moment we discover an opportunity to the final submission and follow up. So I am going to turn it over to Nia, and she's going to help anyone who hasn't explored Instrumentl get set up. So I'm going to stop my share.
Thank you, Allison. And first of all, thank you so much for all of these tips. I warned you all that this was going to be framework heavy, lots of strategy. And was I not correct? I've been taking notes. I'm like, okay, this is like, I've got some tips that we need to update our presentations. So thank you, Allison. What we're going to do here is just take 5 quick minutes. I know at the start of this presentation, quite a few of you said that you've never tried Instrumentl, and we want to make sure you have a chance to put all these strategies into practice. And also, first and foremost, just get a good list of grant opportunities, things that you're custom matched with that are active. So we're going to take about 5 minutes to do that. For those of you who have Instrumentl, go ahead and pull it up. For anybody who is new to Instrumentl, you're going to go ahead and click this link that I'm putting in the chat box right here. Once we get through this little setup, I'm going to turn it back to Allison to actually show you, sort of put pen to paper and show you how she does all of these things in Instrumentl. But like I said, and like Allison has mentioned, you can really apply this to a spreadsheet or to Monday or to Asana or to Trello. It's more so about the frameworks that are in place. So go ahead and click that link I just put in the chat. Once you do that, you'll see a screen like this. You're just going to fill it out. It's if you've ever ordered on DoorDash, on Amazon, eBay, don't tell me you haven't. You're filling out the same type of form, except there's no credit card required right here. And then once you fill out that information, you're going to go ahead and click skip right here. So actually, because you're in this workshop with me, this is a very special opportunity where you get to go right into Instrumentl without having to talk to an onboarding strategist, because you have Allison here walking you through her process. So once you've gotten to this stage, you're going to go ahead and click skip, and I'm going to show you how you set up a project on Instrumentl. This is going to take about 3 minutes, And then you are rocking and rolling with your list of grant opportunities. So you're going to end up on a screen. Yes, Marlene, it's going to be a free trial that you're setting up, but it's a special free trial that lets you get directly into Instrumentl without having to talk to any of our onboarding team, because Allison is right here walking us through it. Nikima, it's just that link I put in the chat box. I'm happy to stay a couple minutes afterwards and talk you through any issues if you ran into any. But what we're going to do here, once you set up your free trial, it's going to ask for some questions about the project you're fundraising for. So think of this as like one thing that you're looking for grants for, not your organization as a whole, but one specific project that you're trying to get funded. For my example, I'm doing a history education program, and I'm going to put in 5 to 6 sentences about the program. So what we do, the intended outcomes, who we serve, and Instrumentl is actually going to generate keyword suggestions based on what I told it. So you can see based on this sentence or this paragraph that I've put in right here, it thinks that I should be looking for grants related to after school educational programs, elementary education, museums. If there's some that you think are missing, you can actually add keywords manually so you can browse through them. And this is the backbone of Instrumentl system. So this is how you're trying out, how you're finding all of those good fit grants. So you're going to fill this out.
Hey,
And then
Nia.
once, yep.
Sorry, are you sharing a screen? Because if you are, I'm not seeing it.
Ooh, really?
Is everyone else seeing it? I'm not seeing it.
Is everybody else seeing my screen?
Oh, it's okay. It's just me. Sorry. Sorry about that.
Allison, I'm gonna turn it back to you in like 30 seconds, so just bear with me.
No, I'm so sorry.
Okay, perfect. So only Allison can't see, no worries. What we're gonna do here is just answer a couple more questions about the organization. So we're gonna say what type of applicant we are, whether or not we're faith-based, where our project takes place. This helps us find grants that are applicable to both organizations that work nationally, but also if there's a grant maker that wants to fund your specific county, you'll see all of those options. And then you're going to do the grant size. So maybe you're not looking for anything under 50K right now, or maybe you're not looking for anything over 500K. You can specify that. And then two really important steps here, what the funds are going to be used for. So maybe you're only trying to fund general operating right now, right? Like you're on this really niche mission. You're like, I'm going to find a grant specifically for general operating. So you can specify that, or you can do any of these other categories, and then the types of funders you want to see. So for my example here, I'm excluding federal because I'm like, I don't have the bandwidth. I'm like, I don't want to deal with it. I'm just selecting these. I'm gonna hit save and exit. And just like that, that's it. That's our project setup. And Instrumentl has matched me with 292 active grant opportunities. So once you've set up that project of yours, you'll get your own grant matches. And with that, I'm gonna hand it back to Allison. So Allison, feel free to take over now with your process.
Okay. Sounds good. So I'm going to take you right into, I have Instrumentl pulled up into my account. And can you see that okay?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. Okay, so these are the different clients right now, and I wanted to talk about this one, which is Vashon Events. And so I have, I'm selecting only the prospects that are related to this organization, Vashon Events. And so you can see that, we've got everything set up, what's planned, what's been submitted. But here's what I wanted to show you. I'm going to pop into this specific opportunity, the McFarlane Foundation. And here's the overview. I can put information about the grant portal and contacts and all of this great information. I can also upload the draft of the full proposal and so on. But here's where the tasks are. So this little tab right here is where I set up the 50-day turnaround. And so, we've got the research, the opportunity, and then the date. And the way that I come up with the dates is I am an AI user. I'm a fan. So I actually use ChatGPT, and I can, I'll put this in the chat, how I kind of do this task checklist. So I'm going to just copy and put this in the chat. So this is what the sort of the prompt that I give to Chat GPT or whatever. When you could use a calendar too, but I'm lazy. So I basically am telling it that these are the dates and that the numbers in the parentheses are the days to the deadline. So 50 is 50 days to the actual deadline, 45 days to the actual deadline. So I tell it what date is the actual deadline, and then I have it create a list of dates for me. And that's when I can now go over here and I input into Instrumentl, into this task list, the different things that we're going to do. So I review, we complete the final draft, the client reviews and approves, and the plan submission date. And one of the things I really love about this is that we can also create a report in Instrumentl. So if I go back here up into the top right corner where there's reports, I can there's actually a specific report for tasks. So I can click on this task report. I'll select the project that I want. I want things that are maybe just incomplete right now, but it's up to you what you're looking for. And I'm just gonna, at this point, select full proposal and letter of inquiry. I could do, any of these that I want to, but I'll just do that for now. And I'm going to select everyone that's on the team. And then I could put in the deadline if I want to. And then I click create the report. So I already did this. So I'm just going to open up I'm going to stop share and open up the report for you to see in Excel. So it's right. Let's see. Here. And so this is the task report. Can you see this okay?
Yep.
Okay, great, thank you. And so I've just sorted this by due date. And so now I have this task calendar by due date, and I know exactly what I need to do, request client information and what's the status, if there were attachments and so on, it would be listed right here. And this is a spreadsheet that you could actually then upload into Asana or, into whatever sort of project, if you're using project managed software that you wanted to, put it on your calendar or something like that, you could do that. Or you can just use this as a quick reference tool to have a report. So that's the way that we use Instrumentl, not only to find opportunities. And I just want to say one thing about Instrumentl in terms of opportunities. So I've had subscriptions to a wide variety of databases. I've been doing this for more than 2 decades, like 25 years. So you can take a foundation name, a grant maker name, and you can put it in one of these databases. And what's interesting to me is that Instrumentl has the most, like I can find something Instrumentl and I can put it in a different database and it might not be there. I think that Instrumentl has the most hits in their database, which is, isn't it something like 410,000 hits, Nia? It's something like that. It's just incredible.
It's a lot. I don't want to say the wrong number off the top of my head.
Okay, so I'm just going to go back to my presentation real quick and let's see, share. Okay, groovy. Okay, so just final takeaways for this, and then we'll open it up for questions. Early submission, it's not just a nice idea, it's a strategy. It's not about being overly ambitious or trying to impress anyone. It's about giving yourself space to do your best work, build trust with funders, and reduce the unnecessary stress. So the 50-day turnaround is how we make that strategy doable step by step. And I wanted to just a quick announcement that Spark the Fire has a new grant writing community. It's called the Grant Writer Collective. So this is a place where you can join a community of grant writers and get support. And then you get access to all of my templates, all of my ebooks, all of my webinar recordings and everything together in this space. So I encourage you to check that out. And here is my contact information. I did put my email in the chat, but here it is again, along with the website. And some of the things that we do at Spark the Fire, we are really focused on teaching grant writing. So our flagship course is a assessment-based certificate and grant writing course where everyone actually writes a grant proposal from start to finish and gets individualized feedback on your proposal on a weekly basis. So it's really hands-on. I just don't think you can learn how to write grants without actually writing a grant and getting feedback. So anyway, I'll send you an email right after this that's got the link to the ebook with the discount code, as well as all of these other resources. And yeah, I'd just love to answer some questions now.
Thank you, Allison. So what I'm going to do real quick is actually share my screen because I know there might be some people who have to hop off at the top of the hour. So I'm going to share super quick the last couple slides because I promised folks a raffle. I'm going to give you the details for the raffle and then we'll turn back to the Q&A. So bear with me for a second. Ignore this slide. We're not saying thank you, Allison, just yet. We'll say thank you, Allison, in a second. But what I wanted to share was, for those of you who do have to drop at the top of the hour, I promised y'all a raffle. So how you join the raffle, one of you is going to win a $25 gift card to a vendor of your choice to join the raffle. Very simple. Just click this LinkedIn post that I just shared in the chat box and leave one takeaway, something that you learned in today's presentation, something that you're going to try out, something that stuck with you, maybe something that scares you and you're like, I don't want to try that, but I know I should. Just leave a comment and we're going to draw a raffle winner from that LinkedIn post. So again, I'll put it in the chat one more time. And if any of you have to drop, thank you so much for being here. But for those of you who are sticking around, we'll do like a rapid fire Q&A because I know we had a bunch of questions, Allison, and I don't want to take up too much of your time either because I only asked for an hour with you. But let me pull up some of our questions really quick. So I'm actually going to stop screen sharing so we can have like more FaceTime for a second. But let's see. Catherine asked, this was way early on in the presentation. Catherine asked, for those that submitted grant applications early, and Allison, from your experience, what percent or what chunk of those actually provide feedback? And do you have a process in place for grant makers who make it very explicit from the get-go that they do not provide feedback?
Yeah, I think I mentioned this, that it's, I'm seeing a lot more grant makers say that we don't do that. And I think it's because we're teaching everyone to ask for feedback. And so now everyone's asking for feedback and the grant makers are like, whoa, we can't handle this. But as a grant reviewer, I'm being asked when I review grants to literally make notes on each proposal that I review that are intended to be shared with the organization that applied. And I think more organizations are going to do that. If they think of doing it in advance, it's not that hard to provide the comments that we made, that the reviewers made as they were going through the process. So I hope that that's going to change. And like I said, maybe don't do it right after you get the letter. Just wait a little bit and give them some time to breathe and then come back with a sweet request that, you would really love some feedback.
Thanks for that, Allison. And we have a couple questions. So Paul asked if you run any AI classes, and John had asked in the chat earlier how you use AI throughout your process. So I know this is a loaded question, but maybe give us like a 1 minute snippet of your take on AI because it is kind of a divisive subject still in the
It
grant
is.
world right
Oh my
now.
gosh, it so much is. Yeah, so I have a webinar series on AI, using grant writing for AI, and a AI prompt book for grant writing and fundraising. And the way that I use it is I have trained my chatbot to write grants exactly like I want it to. So when I say write 3 smart objectives for this kind of project, it knows exactly what I mean. So it's you have to train your chatbot. I use ChatGPT, but you have to train it to do what you want it to, and you have to feed it a lot of information and tell it when it's right and tell it when it's wrong. And that's a process, but once you kind of make it through that process, it is such an amazing tool. So I'll just say, because I only have like 5 seconds left, that one of the best ways to use AI for grant writing is to actually upload your grant proposal in AI and ask it to give you an assessment of of the strengths and weaknesses of your proposal and suggestions for improvement. Game changer right there.
I agree 100%. We're always advocating for the use of AI specifically in identifying like gaps, further opportunities. What did we not explain enough? What was too jargony? I think super good call out there. Okay. We have a couple questions that get into the nitty-gritty around do you do this or does the client do this? So maybe I'll just rapid fire a couple things here. Lynn asks, do you send the thank you and do you request the feedback or does the client do this?
Okay, so great questions. As the freelance grant writers, we stay invisible, and yet we do everything we can for the client. So we set our rates at a space where at a level that our client is expecting us to do every single thing that we can to make this whole process easy for them. So yes, we will write the thank you note, but they will send it. We will write the cover letter, but they will send it. We will prepare the application, but they will push the button.
Okay, perfect. Straight to the point. And then we have a question from Sarah, I think maybe one level deeper, same subject here. Do you create the online account, like in the grant portal, whatever it looks like? Do you create the online account with your client's info as the application preparer or
Yes.
your info as the application?
Never my info. I've had from long time ago, I've had years later, I'll get this email about something about somebody's account because it used my email a really long time ago. And so I never do that. Those communications need to go to the client, not to you, long after you've transitioned away. So it's always the client information.
And we have one final question on this topic. This is from Sally. And I think we're just clarifying here because we do have some folks in the room who are in-house grant writers. They're not consultants. So Sally asks, if I am the in-house grant writer, can I be the person to click the button or does it have to be leadership? Does it have to be somebody else or can it just be me?
I personally think that you should make the executive director be the one to sign off on it because again there have been cases of fraud where I don't want to like be alarmist or whatever, but grant writers have actually gone to jail because they've been scapegoated even if they're internal to an organization. So that is just a hard line for me. Executive director pushes the button every time.
Okay, keep it simple. Just okay. I want to say that that covers the bulk of the topics. Folks, if you have a question that I missed, can you just copy paste it in the chat? But I think I covered all of the main topics that we had. Can we just get confirmation, Allison? We have a lot of folks in the room worried about this ebook, and we are going to get that ebook to you. It will land in your inbox.
Yes, yeah. So make sure that you've opted into sharing your email with me. And then I'm going to send an email right after this with the access to the ebook and the discount code so you can get it for free, as well as a lot of other information and resources that we've talked about today. And you've got my email address. Feel free to email me with your questions. I'm open to communication. And yeah, hey, that's what I'm here for. This is my life's work. I love to talk about grant writing. I'll do it all day.
Okay, Allison, I just want to clarify one last thing. Anybody who's live in this room right now, you have opted in, so don't worry, you're in. If you're in this room right now, you will get the ebook. For anybody who didn't join us live, there's going to be a separate box that they have to opt in to receive the email from Allison. So don't worry about that. You are all getting the book. And then Allison, I'm just going to share my slides once more to wrap us up. But in the meantime, we had one question from Catherine who said, how can we join the collective?
Oh, yeah. I'm not going to share the screen right now, but just go to my website, sparkthefiregrantwriting.com, and there's a box right on the homepage that says join the community.
Perfect. Okay, I'm gonna put sparkthefiregrantwriting.com in the chat again so you all have that readily available. Go ahead. And my final housekeeping items here. As you exit out of this event, you're going to get a feedback form. Please fill that out. We'll give you an extra raffle entry. This helps us improve our programs and make sure we keep bringing back speakers like Allison who are going to give you so much value. And last thing here, we do have more events coming up. So if you haven't already, go register for our upcoming events. We have a really good roster to close out June. And last but not least, thank you all so much for being here. I'll put my LinkedIn in the chat. I would love to connect with you all. And once again, I'm going to put Allison's LinkedIn and Spark the Fire Grant Writing in the chat. Thank you all so much for being here. And Thank you, Allison, so much for the presentation, for staying over, answering all our questions, for the ebook, for all the resources. You have been just such a wealth of knowledge and also so generous with your time and everything that you're sharing with us. So we really appreciate it. Folks in the chat appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nia. It's been so